And Senator John Nyoto with us in the studio. FCPA has Bonomolo, Makinyamita Uriri constituency MP, and Dr. Ruben Kigame are with us in the studio. Yes, your hand was up, Honorable Nyamita.
Yeah, maybe before I come to what let me start with what Ruben speaks to, the allocation for education. I actually think that what Mbadi did was, the budget process is actually just beginning. It's going to go and culminate into an actual budget sometimes later next year, around towards June, thereabout. And when he projects that there's going to be an increase in the amount of money that is being allocated to education, is that because there's a plan also to increase the number of teachers in this coming financial year. There is a plan to increase the number of classes. There is a plan for special needs education within that particular.
How much?
I don't have the figures, but it is there.
It's not there.
For the junior secondary school teachers who are up in arms, 20,000 of them still not absorbed on permanent and pensionable terms.
Because,
is that a good starting point?
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is the number of teachers that we have in the junior secondary is still even not adequate.
How much has Mbadi allocated to special education?
Let me just finish my point.
Okay.
I don't have the exact figures, but I know that within it, that ballpark figure includes teachers' salaries. It includes teacher salaries, which is actually going to TSC. It includes operations at the ministry, and then it includes the allocations he's talking about, different categories at 15, 25, even possibly that 200,000, and including the amounts that is actually going to Higher Education Loans Board. You remember this last year, I think the Higher Education Loans Board went to almost 40-something billion. And you would agree with me that unlike the previous year where there was a lot of hue and cry around the new funding model for the university, in this last year there was a very great attempt at inclusion, and very many students who actually got funding. There is an issue also with the lecturers. They're talking about CBAs that have not been actually implemented. Yeah. I think that has actually also been factored. So I'm only trying to explain that possibly that could lead to an increase. The junior secondary school teachers are going to be confirmed after 2 years, because that's actually the plan. And the reason is the gap to fill for us to have adequate number of teachers in junior secondary is still very huge. So what is actually the prudent thing to do? If you can have more teachers, so these ones go for 2 years. After the second year, they're actually going to be confirmed automatically. But another lot, which is about to go in, I think, between now, before we open in January, is also going to go in to help our education. And I mean,
those we covered say they have already finished the 2-year.
No, the ones who have actually done 2 years are actually going to be confirmed.
To be confirmed, so
yeah,
they're not yet confirmed.
There is provision for those who have done 2 years in the current budget to confirm them. The ones who actually are going to be hired now will go for another 2 years. And I think even the CS was here on your station, on your studio, and he actually clarified that. And all we are saying is, I think it is a good attempt, because when you look at over the last 3 years, I think by the end of this year we would have hired about 100,000 teachers. Because one of the biggest problems that we had in the education sector was actually the shortage of teachers. There has been a very great effort to try and address that issue. But now let's talk about, my good friend here speaks to priority.
Yeah.
And says that, affordable housing, which was in the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, of UDA, his party that brought him to parliament. What he's not telling you, how did they intend to raise the money to do the affordable housing? Whether it is a fund, whether it is a tax, it was money that was actually going to be gotten from the citizens. There is actually absolutely nothing different. And when he says, issues of food security, what is it that we need to prioritize? He's not telling you where that money is supposed to be. What is the plan to, in his view, to address the issue that he speaks to about food security? There has been an attempt, and I can say over the last 3 years, Ayub, we have seen gory stories on your media and in this country of Kenyans going without food, struggling, us trying to import food to try and feed Kenyans. That has not happened over the last 3 years. We are not yet where we are, but there is a bit of an attempt. Think about a sector like the sugar industry. Our farmers were struggling. A company like Sony, before this privatization, were only paying averagely about 10 to 15 million a week to farmers Today, they are paying 100 million to farmers. I come from that region. They pay about 100 million shillings to farmers every single week. That is money that is going into the pockets of the people around there. The economy is beginning to improve. The insecurity around those areas, for example, around Sony Sugar, where I come from, has actually gone down because there's money that is actually beginning to circulate. So when you speak about SHA...
Yeah. Before you go to SHA, you pointed this out, and it was on the affordable housing note. Page 20 of the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto says, of which budget commitment of 50 billion Kenya shillings, with 200 billion to be financed by pension funds, assets under management currently standing at the time when it was launched at 1.5 trillion, and other collective investment schemes, including the diaspora bonds. This was in relation to the commitment made of over the financial year 2022-23 and 2026-27, the last financial year before we head to the ballot.
I was not in the, I'm just trying to talk about, I know that they had provided for a levy.
They did not.
No.
They did not commit to that.
No, maybe I don't know which document you're actually talking to.
This is the manifesto they sold the Kenyan, which Senator John used to defend it, and which you are defending now.
What I'm defending now is a very simple thing. The housing levy came to the Parliament, where both John Yutu sits in the Senate and I sit in the National Assembly, and we passed it. And I am saying, in both the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto and the Azimio Manifesto, there was a provision for us to do affordable housing. Why? Because there was need. It was just not something that we wanted to do. There was need because it was to address the housing shortages. And when you actually get to office, you find you are faced with the realities of the day. And there was a debate back and forth. Do we make it a fund? Do we make it a levy? Finally, and maybe George Yutu didn't vote for it. I also didn't vote for the first version of it, but subsequently I did. But because I belong to Parliament, when the thing has actually been passed, I take responsibility. Because the Parliament is a house of where, you know, my majority have their say, minority have their way.
I have some questions.
If you just allow me to land.
I'll come to that.
If you allow me to land.
Okay.
So the thing is this, that the affordable housing, now that we have the money, is doing the right things. Because beyond the houses, and I think during the break you had Omolo speak to, if you walked around Nairobi today, you're seeing all billboards and they're all talking about housing. It means the need is still there. It means the need is still there. That's why they're marketing so many houses. The need is still there. It is still not yet addressed. We are trying to bring decency. All of us here have homes. Other people don't have. When you look at, when I was speaking about a project in each and every part of the country, if you go to the rural areas, the markets are actually being constructed. We are trying to remove our women from the roadside where they're being rained on, trying to make a living into some level of decency. And within there, then the next level is how do you do value addition within the produce that is coming from the farm. There is that attempt.
And how much of that is done by the counties?
Well, if you ask me, I can only speak about my county. I haven't seen the county do anything. I haven't seen.
Ideally, it's a devolved function, is it?
What I'm saying is, I'm not here to discuss the different functions of different, but I'm only saying that the markets that we are seeing across the country are actually being done by the national government. But let me say this.
But is it a national government function?
We are not. I am here to say we're talking about state of the nation and what the government is actually doing, because the government is actually raising the counties have failed. National government can be able to do it, because what matters to the people is not who does it, but whether it is done or not.
But there is a distinct line between what the counties can do and what the national government can do.
Ayub, I think to be fair in the discussion today, let us steer clear. We are talking about the state of the nation, about what is happening and what has not happened. And I am only trying to describe what exactly is happening. That we are having decent markets actually being constructed.
Okay.
Yeah, we are having decent markets being constructed to give our mothers and our women. You know, I was a hawker once. And we are seeing that that decency is actually being brought. And it's being happening under this national government.
Thank you.
Now, even beyond that, when you speak about SHA.
We'll come to SHA. Can I just get...
because
we'll get it so that I give you enough time as well to also expound on that. Yes, Hasbon.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Ayub. Allow me first to just bring to the attention of
Dr. Kigame.
Dr. Kigame that special needs education has a budget of 979 million for the current financial year. In terms of Kenya Institute of Special Education, there's an allocation of about 622 million. There is Kenya Institute of the Blind, another 51 million. The Education Assessment and Resource Center, 9.2, and then there are development expenses around assembly of assistive devices. So I know there is a budgetary allocation. It may not be sufficient, but that is a conversation that can be taken forward. But now coming back to some of the issues that are being raised here, and I think globally, you look at education and healthcare as very key social services. And I think we need to ask ourselves, in the education sector, what is the biggest challenge we're having? The university education support is not working well for the students because of the manner in which we restructured our universities. I think Kenya and any other developing nation needs to appreciate that a good economy should have at least 80% of that kind of social service in the education sector provided by government, then only about 20% in the private sector. That way, then you're able to establish the right balance. And then in terms of the graduated nature of education, we cannot have everybody getting C+ funded through the exchequer towards university education. The economy cannot sustain. And that is why we've struggled to support university education. I'm for an education system that follows what I would call a pyramid sort of structure. So the higher you go, then the numbers thin a bit, then the economy can support. Anybody else who is able to fund, they can do that. Same to healthcare. We have close to 50% of healthcare in this country in the public sector. So the private sector and the faith-based organizations are handling the rest. If you have such kind of a structure in the healthcare, you will struggle to fund it as a country. And therefore, for the government to work under SHA to try and fund all that space, it means we have collapsed almost all our public facilities in the healthcare space. That is where we need to strengthen so that majority of the population then can get the services there and fund them from there. And that would be easy to support. Now, how SHA is working, there are good aspects of it. But I think you've said rightly that we'll have a deeper conversation around what can be done differently. But now allow me to learn something on food security, which Honorable Jojo Nyotu raised. I think when it comes to food security, you look at each and every sector in the agriculture. They've all recorded increased production numbers. Whether that is attributed to rain, as some others say, or fertilizer, or a combination of that, it's a good thing. So that, as Mark says, we have had very few cases of people literally going hungry and the government cannot intervene. But now, for us to secure that space, and the climate keeps changing, climate is a big issue. Our investment in the dams must be enhanced so that programs such as the Galana Kulalu can be priced appropriately to be able to provide the much needed food production items that we ordinarily import from other countries. So I think those are areas I wanted to speak to. And finally, Reuben Kigame mentioned something very important. And I think we cannot close our eyes to our public debt situation. If you are earning 3.3 trillion in terms of taxes, you cannot have a budget of 4.3 trillion. And that has been done by Parliament over the years. So when we ask about even the issue of the odious debt, I don't agree with it. If every year you have a budget deficit of close to $1 trillion, you cannot in 10 years ask why we have a 10 trillion debt. It is obvious. You're going to borrow to fund the deficit. And that is not a space as a country we would want to get into, because then it hurts us. But I think the more important question then is, what is the role of Parliament? I know we are having a State of the Nation address by the President to account for the executive. But the legislature also needs to give us their account of what they've done. I have opined here, Ayub, in the few instances I've had an opportunity to be on studio, that our public debt situation has a very strong pulse in Parliament. Why am I saying this? The CDF, which has now been outlawed by the courts, is a function of the budget. It's 2.5% of our budget. If our budget is 3 trillion, how much am I getting as CDF as an MP? If it is 4 trillion, am I not getting more allocation? What is the incentive for me to have a lower budget? Right. And that is where fiscal indiscipline has come in.
Yeah.
And now where we are, we must then now cut our cloth according to our size.
And Parliament's a critical role in budget-making process.
They are very critical in the budget-making process.
Yes, Senator Newt.
Ayub, I think I want to say one or two things about what my colleague panelists have talked about. And you know, Dr. Reuben Kigame gave us very good figures of the progressive allocation, budgetary allocation to especially education. And you know I'm a teacher by profession. Yeah. But I think the challenge is all these billions are allocated, yes, at the budget level. But when it comes to disbursement, it becomes a completely different issue.
From the exchequer?
Yes, from the exchequer. It is not like when we allocate 626 billion to education last year that all of that was disbursed. It remains just a budgetary allocation. And that is why, with the very good plans that Mark is talking about of, you know, increasing the number of teachers, there are plans to do this and that, it will not be done because these amounts will not be disbursed. And that is a challenge. And though this is not a political debate, when these funds are not allocated, and we see some funny programs in the name of empowerment happening, where, you know, millions and millions of shillings are gobbled, we feel tempted to think that it is because there is no budgetary allocation to such. These campaigns, we have reports that government has already sunk about 300 million in Beira. So we get tempted to think...
Which you cannot verify.
That's what I'm saying, they are just reports. So we are tempted to think that these allocations that are not disbursed, actually the monies are the ones then that are taken to other issues that are not of importance to anybody. But I would have wanted to hear Mark say, when he said that he knows there are plans to increase the number of teachers, which is good, the number of classes, which is also good, and it's good that you raised with him the issue of interns who are demanding to be employed on permanent and pensionable basis and for their pay again to be enhanced. I would have wanted to hear Mark tell us something about capitation. Because you see, when you are dealing in an educational institution, for example, a school, you cannot just say that I want to raise the number of teachers, the number of classes. I mean, we need to run that institution. We need money to run that institution. So what are the plans for disbursing capitation in total as per the plan? 50% in first term, 30% in 30-20. What are the plans? Mark avoided that completely, conveniently. And it is not that he doesn't know that there is an issue, but he wanted to avoid that. You know? Then he said that we supported, he said that whether housing, this fund is a fund, housing levy or a fund, I mean, for him, it doesn't make much difference. There is a very big difference between a levy and a fund. Because a levy is a tax. And a tax is not a revolving, it's not something revolving. Once taxes are collected, and that's why we have a budget, CPA, Omolo will tell you that, of course, we expend all those monies, and we even have a deficit. But when we have a fund, I mean, this is an amount of money that is kept somewhere. It can actually even be invested to earn some income, some return. And it is there. Okay. It is revolving. You can, and that is, I think, that is also the design that was supposed to happen at HELB. That you lend money to students, they pay back. Now with the collections, you lend to others, so that it's a revolving fund. So you cannot equate a levy to a fund. And then, if you allow me to comment about something.
Yes, please,
that,
as you
yes, I know. But you know, Mark also said that, you know, there are many things that are happening about food security. And my question was, do we need housing, these houses, affordable houses, more than dams for, you know, to have an assured food security situation in this country. And when they say that there are billboards all over Nairobi advertising for houses, meaning that houses are needed, it is true in Nairobi. Do we have those billboards in rural areas where some of these housing projects are being done? Because we may not need these houses in those areas. And if you allow me to just say something very quickly about the markets that Mark is talking about.
Okay, because you sit at the Senate, we'll come to that. I'll give you time to respond. Daktari, you had a few questions.
Yeah, quite a number. So, but let me make two comments before I ask the question. So, you know, a government is meant to serve the people. To serve the people, you've got to listen to the people. And if people are talking, they're telling you things, they are informing you about how they are, etc., and you close your ears, you don't want to hear, then you'll be serving your own interests. The noises that we are hearing around the country, people literally shouting the president down, you know, one term, you know, Harambe, one term, you know, it's not just a political noise. The question is this: right from inception, has the president been listening to the citizens? And if you came to the 2024 young people standing up to say, we do not support what you're doing with the budget, and they went to the streets, did the government actually listen? So if you can't listen to the people, then you can't lead them.
Okay, it's very important point you make. Ruben, you proceed. I'll give you enough time. Can we listen to the president?
So here are the questions.
I want us to listen to the president, and then you will proceed with the question. So I'm still on you. Here is what the president said last year when he addressed Parliament, that his administration is a listening administration.
There has never been doubt, and now there is none whatsoever, that Kenya is a land of bold ambition, with our citizens always desiring and insisting on the best possible standards, not only for themselves, but also for their families and for our nation. Consequently, our democracy has empowered citizens to ask questions and demand changes in the way their affairs are managed, driving the wheels of our nation's social, political, and economic transformation faster in the direction of excellence and prosperity. Rare are the times when leadership is ahead of the people. We are always striving to steer the machinery of state and government to keep pace with the aspirations of our citizens. We have learned through the hard as well as the more customary ways that listening is a full-time occupation of leadership, and that all questions asked by the people must be answered thoroughly and in full. We have.
Dr. Ruben, is that the reality though?
You know, if you want to know whether that is the reality or not, you don't ask Ruben Kigame in the studio. You go and ask Mama Mboga, who was promised the world. You ask the Boda Boda guys that were promised heaven. You ask those who've been abducted, because this same president said in his tenure there will be no abductions. Have there been abductions? Of course there have been. There was even, you know, the whole question of nobody will be evicted from their homes. Ask Sami Lui. It's just sad that the dead don't speak. Alifurushwa Woodley. Ask the people of Buxton in Mombasa. Who got the houses that were promised them? Ask the people of Majengo in Nairobi and Makongeni that I'm listening to now, where they are promised you'll own these houses in 22 to 25 years. Then Sakaja and his team comes saying, show us the agreement, etc. Now, coming to the housing, because these are the questions I needed to raise my brother and the other parliamentarians. When you actually build affordable houses, you're building on public land. You build on public land, you take money from people's pay slips, and then you sell the houses. Is that, affordable house, for the citizens, or it's for the business people? Right now, you're going to be talking about how to take certain aspects of the forest and hand them over for private, human settlement. Have we run out of, spaces that we could actually use for whatever it is you want to do with the forests? When you actually say that the houses that you're building are going to benefit, let's say, the people of Kibera. Now, can you explain for me why the high-rise estate is not for the Kibera people? And that's the same thing I'm asking. When you build these houses, you come and put up a big housing project, affordable houses in Vihiga, where nobody's asking for a house. I've seen them there. You're evicting people in Gilgil to build houses. Who told you people want houses? When everywhere people are telling you, we are hungry. We need food. We need our children to go to school. We need health care. So if you look at the figures and so on, when people keep telling you that we have gone to hospital and SHA is not working, what do? So your figures show that, out of the 17,000 health institutions, maybe 50% or slightly above 50% are actually SHA compliant. But everywhere people are saying, I've got to pay from my pocket. Okay. So when you insist as a government that things are working, when the ordinary person says they are not working, who are you leading? And so Parliament, my question is, and I'll go back to something Brother Omolo said, and this I would want my brother to respond to if possible. When any time you receive a budget proposal, do you ever ask, where will this money come from?
Okay.
Because Parliament seems to be a rubber stamp of the executive. Well, later you tutapitisha.
Can you respond to those?
Is it possible
yes,
that we can get a more responsible house to represent the people, not to represent the president?
Yes.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruben. Of course, the cardinal thing in leadership that all of us leaders need to have is to listen to exactly what is it that the people want and try as much as possible to be able to do what they want. But at the same time, in leadership also, when you're put in a leadership position, it is also incumbent upon you to also lead your people. So there's a balance of both. You listen, but you also show leadership. It doesn't mean that when you are a leader now, you just listen. You also have to, because that's why they put you in the position where you are. On the issue of a balanced budget, I think that over the last so many years, I've been in Parliament now for about 8 years, I don't think we have had a balanced budget. Every other year we have a budget deficit that we keep on carrying to the next level, And sometimes debt is not necessarily a bad thing. And let's talk about even personal budget, like Dr. Kigame was talking about. If I earn 100,000 myself, and I go to the bank to borrow another 1 million shillings to build a house, the question is, is my rent equivalent to the amount that I'm paying? And how is it that is going to help me over a period of time? So even all of us, we can take individual debts, just like the country can also take debt. The only question is that debt that you take, is it sustainable? And the truth of the matter is, if we don't do something drastic, and I think now that's incumbent upon us, especially now as we go into Parliament, this particular budget, 3 trillion projected collection, considering like this financial, yesterday I was at the taxpayers dinner, and they have actually just hit for the first time 2.57 trillion in terms of local domestic collections.
Yeah.
And they have projected another 3-point-something trillion, which is an additional almost 500 billion. And then now you are doing a 4 trillion plus. So it means there's a gap of about 1 trillion. So when it comes to Parliament, we will need to ask ourselves, and I challenge my good friend, though he sits in the Senate, but we will need to ask ourselves, is this really sustainable?
In your view, is it?
Well, it depends on, because I need to read through the details. What are the other things that actually are going to happen? Because also, you cannot say that we will restrict it to exactly what we collect, then we pay salaries, without investing something into the economy. When you invest money into the infrastructure, for example, now there is a Rironi or Summit Road that is going to open up this area. The businesses that are going to be in that particular area is going to stimulate the economy in that area. When some of those projects are also...
And in terms of the time frame, that will be some time, is it?
That's okay.
Before that's completed. Yeah,
let me say this, Ayub.
The question was on the budget and our debt, plus also the money that 1 million people in the public sector consume, the wage bill ideally, which the Salaries Commission says is unsustainable because that's already in violation of the PFM Act, which recommends for 35%, and now we are at 43 to 45%.
And that's why I'm challenging myself, including my colleague parliamentarians, that now when that budget actually comes in, we need to try and find out how do we take ourselves back to sustainable levels. But I am saying that when there is borrowing to be reinvested in the economy, when you do a proper road, many more businesses are going to thrive. They are going to pay more to the tax that you're actually going to collect is actually going to be more. There are many businesses. I mean, how many hours do trailers use between here and Busia? If the highway is actually done, maybe it's going to be less. So they'll be doing more rounds. It means more business. That is actually more movement of goods and services. So there must be a balance. The question is, which is what now we will look into that particular budget, that the investment that we are putting in different sectors, is it in sectors that are going to turn very quickly so that they can be able to raise the required money? There is a bill that is actually, I think it's coming to the floor of the House and it will find its way into the Senate, which is the infrastructure bill. And I think it will address the issues of dams, where they were projecting to collect maybe overall about 4 trillion. Let me say, this statement from the president of moving Kenya to first world will not happen by 2032. Will not possibly happen by 2042. It's actually in our lifetime. And I want to say, it is important for us, leaders at all our levels, both elected and non-elected, including you, Ayub, that we become ambitious. And when we are ambitious, then we work towards it. Now, the process of changing a nation from where we are to the first world, I can tell you it's going to be very painful.
Okay.
And it is going to be painful to all of us collectively. We have to pay, because the debt that we're actually talking about today could be about 12 trillion. But how much did this regime inherit? We got into this term of parliament when the debt was almost about 9 trillion.
And in all this time, there was parliament.
I am just
where
saying,
you sat.
Yes, there was parliament. And I'm saying, I take responsibility collectively, because then maybe we didn't do. But I'm saying, all these years, it has been about 9 trillion.
Should then also, because you talked about prudence in terms of resources, before I come to Hezbollah, final question. The Singapore model, all the talk around first world. But should the example start at the doorstep of the presidency? Because he has advisors almost equal the number of his cabinet. They are all paid by the taxpayers. Should we also cut down on all this? Because moving to first world needs a lot of painful process, as you have said. But certainly, matching Lee Kuan Yew will be difficult in Kenya. And do you think the president has the political traits? I
actually think if we are talking about, in the grand scheme of things, to try and say, you know, he has 10 more advisors than his predecessor and things like that, I mean, even how much will you save? It's actually being trivial in the grand scheme of things.
It isn't, Honorable Mark Nyamita. They are almost earning the same salary as a cabinet minister.
And let
it
me
isn't. And they are 20.
Let me tell you
there are children who are going hungry, who have no school fees, and you talked about, appreciated all those problems.
It sounds okay to say it that way, Ayub. This country did very well when we were in the Kibaki regime. We had 40 ministers, and we had 40 assistant ministers. It was 80.
We did not have 40 advisors. That's what I'm talking about.
No, but I'm talking about, when we're talking about pay. You're saying they were earning equivalent to a cabinet secretary. We had 40 ministers.
We plan to pay for the cabinet portfolios.
And let me tell you, we had 40 ministers with a smaller economy. But what is it exactly they were doing? That's the question.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say,
you agree with me, Honorable Nyamita. I won't allow you to proceed with that. We plan to pay for cabinet members.
Of course, we pay for cabinet members.
Why then do you have advisors if you have the cabinet?
I tell you, the question is what advice is he giving? What are the advices? If there is need, adding just 1 million for one person earning $1 million shillings, I am just trying to tell you.
There are 20.
That when we are talking, what I'm telling you, Ayub, and we have been in this nation, when we had 40 ministers, and we had 40 assistant ministers, 80 people sitting in the executive, the wage bill during that time was way higher. But when we compare the performance
What was the wage bill then?
No, I don't have the exact figures. I don't have the exact figures.
Now we are past 43, already in violation of the PFM Act.
I'm just trying to say. So what I'm saying, if that time we didn't violate, all I'm saying, don't reduce this thing, the debate, to how many people they have, so many. If you're talking about people who are earning at the level of a minister, we have had at one point 40 ministers, and the wage bill was lower. So all we need to ask is what is the output of the people in office, including, we say a maximum of 22 cabinet secretaries.
Thank you.
Nothing stops President Ruto from having 10 cabinet secretaries. The question is, when he has 22, what exactly are they doing?
Okay. The point is they are paid to advise him because they're technocrats. Yes, Husband.
Allow me to weigh in on that, and I think I would give it a different approach. I think in leadership space, you lead by example, and therefore the example we set then can either be an incentive for the nation to rally behind you or not. I think the issue of many advisors, I would not look at it necessarily from the point of what are these people doing. Sometimes certain decisions may be made in the political space to address political issues. And I think we are all living in a country where, for the first time in a year, we have had a relatively peaceful nation. The first year of this regime was marked by Sufuria protests in the cost of living related protests. The second year was a Gen Z protest. This is probably the last 12 months of relative calm. Alongside it, in terms of lack of, or rather, we don't have people on the streets. We almost lost this country.
We were there this year.
No, it's all right, Kigame. The point I'm trying to put across is the scale of protests we've had in this country the first 2 years of this regime have in many, many ways reshaped how this regime works. And some of those decisions may have been made for political purposes. But the point I wanted to land, which is very important, on housing, we need to look at it in a broader sense. And the simple question would be, I run an audit firm. I have employees who I pay salaries. Paying a salary of 50, 60,000 or 100,000 to an employee living in Nairobi who has to get a decent house at 50, 60,000 makes that salary untenable for their lifestyle. If this process of dealing with affordable housing in this city can create a housing where they can get decent housing at 20,000 shillings, my 100,000 salary makes sense to them. So for the overall construct of the economy, one of the key factors of production is labor. And labor is a construct of housing. So from that context, it's okay. However, when you have to deduct people's salaries by way of levy, and we understand the history, this housing fund started in 2018 thereabout. It went through courts, it was stopped. It came through Parliament, initially capped at certain levels. Something happened with the laws until we ended up with a levy where people are now paying directly and there's no related refund if you don't do something in a certain number of years. But I think what then should be done is what Honorable Nyutu was saying. Yeah. That after a certain period of time, when this fund stabilizes, that it can now start revolving and the people who have bought are repaying. And I'm glad most of the housing units, Honorable Kigame, you need to note this. There was a report on absorption of the completed units. The numbers are looking good across the country. So that is a positive thing. However, over time, this will need to be dropped at some point, and the fund should be self-sustaining into the future. And if there will be gaps in terms of need to add more housing stuff, it would be better in the future to now allocate a budgetary allocation from Parliament to show up that fund and then free the pay slip of the employee. I think that would be important to land. The other issue is about the tenure of our debt. And this is very, very important. President Uhuru Kenyatta, the average cost of our debt was 7.2, age of our debt was 7.2 years. That is the average. So external will be almost 11 years. Our local debt would be about 5 years or so. So it balances at 7.2. We are now at 7.6. So there's an improvement in terms of trying to stretch that period. A good space where we can have a breather would be around the age of 10 to 12 years. That should be what the mandarins at Treasury should target. And that therefore means we must relook at how we are handling our public debt. Otherwise, the kind of challenges we're having in this economy are going to persist, and I think we may struggle to sustain our debt portfolio.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Ayub. Please allow me.
I'll come to you, Daktari. Kigame, shortly. Yes,
there are issues that kindly I would want to talk about. Markets before this issue evaporates, Ayub. You know, you tried to raise the issue of whether it's a county government function or a national government function with Mark. Mark did not want to answer that question because simply markets are under counties. And if the national government wants to construct market structures in counties, they should actually give them as grants to counties. But you see, President Ruto will not accept to do that because he wants to go or come to Murang'a, for example, and say, see, I'm constructing this market structure for you. So it's a matter of politics. It is a county government function, and that must be made very clear to our viewers that the president is just doing politics with markets. He is not supposed to be anywhere with market structures. The other thing is public participation. You know, if you go to some of the areas where you find these market structures, I mean, nobody would need them. If you had asked, if there was public participation, to ask those traders there, mostly they are women, and asked them, will you need a market structure, a storied market structure here, or would you rather get a structured, a market structure, or have your kids, the schools, receive their capitation and have your hospitals, the hospital insurance fund, doing well. They will tell you otherwise. Otherwise, there is no listening with this thing. When you played that clip, and the president says that we are a listening government, and the Constitution has given people the right to question what we do. Hello. The president listens when he's saying that leaders are brainless. Who would talk to him if he cannot even listen to leaders? He thinks they are brainless. What about the holoi polloi? The commoners. Would you even be able to express yourself if leaders are brainless? Because in this country, according to President Ruto, he is the only person that God created in this country with a head and a brain. Everybody else is brainless. And then he tells people that he is listening. Let him give Kenyans a break. Because that is doublespeak. When Gen Zs tried to express themselves last year, and there was a report from this media house last evening, about how, telecom companies, were used to track those young people Most of them, of course, were killed. I think the number stands at about 128. I mean, and then somebody is saying, the president is saying that people have a democracy. I mean, there's democracy here. They have a right to question. While when you question, actually, you'll be treated right to your home, abducted and killed. I mean, let us, and that's why Ayub, allow me to say, I'll not be attending this afternoon's State of the Nation address by the president, because I know he will come there and make a double speak, promise things that he does not believe in, things that are contrary to what actually he does.
Did you attend the 2023 one?
Yes, that I did, because by that time we had not known that he was double-faced.
2020,
we had believed...
Last year, 2020?
No, I didn't. How could I have attended the State of Nation address being made by somebody who had led a government that had killed so many young people just for expressing themselves? And how could I have gone to such a house where you remember when he finally said that he was going to drop Adani deals, you know, members of parliament who are previously supporting the same started saying Igwe. And when Ruben here talks about parliament, the role of parliament, I mean, parliament is compromised. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, you don't expect anything that President Ruto that does not want to pass in parliament to pass, because of course of the numbers that he has, especially after he was able to get into a coalition with most of the opposition parties. And Ayub, you talked about these advisors, and Mark here, you know, even told you that Kibaki had 40 ministers. The thing is, do we in the first place need advisors? We have very good technocrats in every ministry, Ayub. Technocrats, people who are very good at the job in any ministry, in just in any education. You'll find the best educationists there. Go to agriculture, for example. You will find some very learned people with long experience with matters of agriculture. Why would you need advisors? And anyway, President Ruto is not advised by anybody. He advises advisors on how to advise him. And that is something that has been proven over time. Allow me to tell my brother
I need to come to Ruben.
A minute or half.
Yes.
To tell my brother Omolo, you know, he says that we have enjoyed relative calm in the last 12 years, although Ruben told him no. In July, we had a protest in July. But if they have subsided, it is because of the crackdown that was done last year. So people fear, young people fear that they'll be actually abducted and killed. And the other thing is sometimes, Ayub, you get used to a situation, however bad, and you are like, I mean, now you cannot change this situation. And remember, so Kenyans have just decided the elections are now nearer. I mean, let us just keep quiet, wait to send this guy home. In 2027. Where I come from, we say we are going to kill both the snake and its eggs in 2027. So I think that is why there is that calm. It is an easy calm.
Okay, before I come to Ruben, so in 2024 you did not attend the State of the Nation address because of the events in the aftermath of June 25th.
Yes, that being one of them.
Of course, as documented by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and the gross human rights violations that were committed.
Yes.
Then, as a matter of moral authority, why then did you attend the 2023 one when protesters affiliated to Azimio were killed during the cost of living demonstrations?
I mean, that time, I think whatever had happened to Azimio was not at the scale that happened.
Kenyans were killed. Senator,
yes, I understand.
This is the point. Very important.
Yes.
And at the time, the protests were about the cost of living. And one trump card that all politicians bear in the back pocket is to upscale the living standards of Kenyans. Kenyans were killed.
Well, yes.
And you attended that State of the Nation
Yes,
address.
I did. Yes,
so
I did.
It's then you are playing the political card then, isn't it?
No, it's not a political card. You know, Ayub. You know,
Ayub, don't be too hard on
it's
him.
me that Ayub has asked the question. It is not you. You'll get your time.
Hang on.
It's me answering the question.
Hang on.
I mean, yes, the scale wasn't as big as that of 2024. And allow me to also say...
One life lost is too
why
many.
don't I... Let me answer this question,
Allow him to finish.
And you know, sometimes when a mistake happens, sometimes you want to believe maybe it's just a mistake that is not going to continue. So, coupled with what happened in 2023, And what then again happened in 2024? Then I saw, I was able to realize it was not just a mistake in 2023. It was like a policy of this particular president. So, you know, when a mistake first happens, Ayub, sometimes you may think that this person maybe did this by mistake. But when he does the same in even a much bigger scale, then you start reasoning and thinking that this is the policy of this particular person or this particular regime. So I may not have been able to, quick to ignore the 2023 one because I thought maybe it happened by mistake. But when in 2024 he confirmed that that was his the policy of his government. Now there was a time. Remember, even when people are divorcing, Ayub, it is not the first mistake that brings the divorce, but when it is sustained, then you realize this is not somebody I can live with. And I hope that answers your question of why 2023 and not 2024.
Point made, but one life lost is too many.
Yes, of course, yes.
Dr. Yes, and then we sample the feedback.
So first of all, let's go to the basics because we are equivocating around too many issues here. First of all, let's just ask the question, why did ODM or the young people in 2023 put on sufurias on their heads? We laugh at it. We laugh and call ODM names. But a sufuria was a symbol of hunger. Chakula hakuna. And we laugh at it as if it was comical. 2024, the young people are asking for accountability. They are asking for an end to corruption. They are asking for a revision of the finance budget, the finance bill. What does the government do? How does the government respond? Crack down on them violently, and they were peacefully demonstrating on the streets with bottles of water. And now, how does this listening president respond to the young people? He calls them criminals, he calls them, treasoners, and so on. What I'm trying to tell you is that the young people are simply asking for accountability. If that is wrong, then I want to be wrong with them. The second thing is 2025. There was that anniversary of June 25th. Young people were killed. You remember the girl called Bridget, shot in their own house. She was not protesting. Ojwang, and so on. And you can ask me about this because I have filed a case against Murkomen and his security bosses, friends. Because one life is too much. If you kill over 100, that's a genocide. And how does this listening government that calls young people terrorists behave? They actually act with terror against the young people and then call 19-year-olds terrorists. I'm actually not amused. And so we need to go back to the foundations. That's all I'm asking for. Let's all go back to the foundations and say, what is it these young people want? What is it Kenyans want? That's how to listen to people. Now, when it comes to housing, if we are going to deduct people's pay slips, then give the people you are deducting the pay slips houses. Because what is the point of paying for a house I will not own? It doesn't make sense. And that's what we are telling the president. So this afternoon, he'll certainly be talking about, affordable housing. For who? Who will own those houses? And we're saying, if you are listening, you would know that the country does not prioritize houses. Then let me talk about our young people that are dying in the Middle East. The New York Times had this article, how top people in government are actually the ones sending our young people there and negotiating. So instead of creating jobs here, we want to export our young people. I think that is unacceptable. We need to make a country that works for all. And just lastly, if the farmers in South Nyanza are being paid, mine in Western Kenya are complaining, the sugar farmers. So we need to actually balance the whole thing. Maybe you should also pay them.
Thank you. So let's sample the feedback, and I give Mark and Hesbon the final words here briefly. So the hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Frank Orinde says Kenya's state of the nation is a tough mirror right now. Economic growth on paper, but a cost of living that keeps squeezing households, and education system where parents are paying more for less clarity. The numbers say progress, the lived reality says struggle. Babu Michael says, as we wait for the State of the Nation address, we must also address the disconnect in the current one, the gap between what the greater population feels about their own nation and what the government is saying. This has always been a major issue. Alex says, my view of the State of the Nation is that even though the shilling is stable to the dollar, the government needs to find a way to reduce the cost of electricity and to produce more power. This will encourage manufacturing, hence stimulate the economy. We will feel it. Kisiangin says, Ayub Nyamita talks about failing sugar factories without mentioning that the management was government appointed. How many corrupt factory managers have been prosecuted? This is just an appetite for selling state assets. Galana has been leased for 30 years. And the good luck Jonathan said, good luck. Okay, I thought it was the former Nigerian president. Good luck, Courage says, Parliament has failed in its mandate of oversight, legislation and representation. They abdicate their role and went into bed with the executive. Do they even check on what was promised in the last State of the Nation? Can Parliament dare ask if promises were fulfilled? And Sir Nixon says, I'm expecting the president to meaningfully remind all Kenyans that everyone has a right to the national cake, and also remind leaders that every taxpayer has a right to development regardless of taxpayers' political stand. Honorable Mark Nyamita, 40 seconds.
I think that I want to urge the president to continue listening more, just like he listened and cancelled Adani. Just like he listened and there are no more taxes. I think that finance bill, after it was suspended, we haven't introduced additional taxes. On the issue of evictions that has been alluded to by Dr. Kigame, I think when you go to Maringo, Makongeni, Woodley, the reality is that the demand, if you look at even the private sector, people who are having homes on 1 acre are actually living and putting up because the need is there, and for that particular reason. Okay. The only thing that we need to ensure is that when we move the guys in Maringo, Makongeni, and all these other places, that they get first priority in their location on the new block. Because on the same parcel of land, you can accommodate more people. And these are the realities. Change is painful.
Dr. Was that the case for Sami Lui?
He should answer.
The next thing that I also wanted to say is that no Kenyan should die. Yeah. And just like you challenged my good friend here, when the ODM and Azimio protesters were killed, he didn't even talk. He never even criticized it. We are not saying that anyone should die, but we need to be consistent. And I actually think that over the last 4 or so years, and I think that's why Azimio actually came in to try and say, okay, if you're saying we stop disagreeing on the streets, let's now sit together and see how we can take this great country forward. Thank you. So as the president is coming in today, we just want to tell him that one of the things that actually the real feedback from the ground now is that infrastructure is going on very well, but now people want money in their pocket.
Thank you.
So that the initiatives over the next 2 years should be initiatives that put money in the pockets of the people so that the cost of living can be dealt with. Thank you very much.
Hesbon.
Yeah, thank you. I think my closing remarks would be, first, our social security fund has grown more than twice what we had since independence. There's need for us to put enough safety nets to ensure that those funds are ring-fenced and protected, and I call upon the legislators to just ensure that that space is protected, because we are getting into a future where those who will retire from public service or private service should be able to have their post-retirement benefits secure, so that they do not have to wait for 2,000 stipend that is happening currently, because we did not think about our retirement. Yeah. I'm happy this regime has thought about that retirement, however painful it is. Two, I would want to urge that we change our language of engagement. leaders have a responsibility, and how you talk to people, how you speak in public spaces, whether addressing people, you must have a language that builds. Otherwise, we are facing an election, and we would want to have an election season that is devoid of extremities, that allows us to retain our nation, Kenya, after the election, so that whichever way it goes well. Finally, time has come for us to audit the 2010 Constitution. In terms of implementation, what is working, what is not working. There are a lot of duplicities, there are a lot of devolved functions that are not fully devolved per se. There are those that are not working at devolved level. It's time for us to look at it and ask ourselves, what is it that we can do differently? Yeah. And I think it's something we need to do as a country.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you very much, Ayub. Finally, I actually want to plead with the President to start listening, because he has not been listening to people, and to know that these houses are not a priority to Kenyans, and if they are, maybe in the cities like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu and such, but in the rural areas, people need more money put into education and health, and to tell him that we, all of us, would want to live in Kenya as a first world, actually in our lifetime. But I want to assure you, because we have also traveled to other countries, courtesy of Parliament, that the way to make a first world is not to be on car roofs all the time, launching roads and the projects that you actually, that do not happen, and where the machinery and what are you follow you after you have launched. That is not the way to make a first world. And finally, to tell the President that God created very many Kenyans, over 40 million of us, and each one of us has a head with the brains. So next time he addresses people, he should not say that people are brainless, least of all leaders. It is important that he knows that he is not the only person that was given brains by God. God was gracious to us also. We give us brains, and he should not look down upon us, on us like we are inferior human beings.
Thank you. Yes, Kigame, I'll be unfair without according your final 30 seconds.
Yeah, so first of all, I would encourage the President to stop blaming previous regimes, and the same challenge goes to parliamentarians. Most of them were in the previous government, and President Ruto was the deputy in the previous government. Secondly, I want all people that are being relocated to be given existing houses that have already been built. We can already allocate them. If you've built so many, then give to those that are being moved out. Thirdly, public participation is a most important thing if Parliament, if government, if the President has to move on with this country. Lastly, let's all go back to the reports of the Auditor General and realize that we have a monster that we need to deal with vis-a-vis corruption. It is theft of the public resources, and we must do something or this country will sink.
Asante. Dr. Ruben, thank you. Honorable Mark, thank you. FCPA, thank you. Senator, appreciate it. Many thanks, gentlemen. Up next is Cooking Tips with Safina Chiengoma, and the State of the Nation continues from 10 a.m. with our Swahili team, who will be here. Our reporters will be in Parliament ahead of the President's address, the third since he ascended to the presidency in 2022. Thanks for waking up with us. Good morning.